My name is Adrian Cole, and for a long time, I thought love meant endurance. That if you stayed patient enough, proved yourself consistently enough, eventually the person you loved would see your worth. I married Vanessa 8 years ago in a ceremony that felt larger than my insecurities. She had a magnetic presence, confident, radiant, the kind of woman who could light up a room without even trying. I was quieter, steady, more at ease creating things than showing them off. From the very start, there was always a shadow looming between us, her ex, Ryan. He wasn't just someone from the past. He was a standard I could never meet. A successful entrepreneur, flashy, charming, reckless in ways that made for good stories. At first, Vanessa didn't openly compare me to him, but the comparisons were there in subtle ways, a sigh, a playful reminder of the time Ryan whisked her away to Napa for a weekend. I told myself it was harmless nostalgia. I told myself she chose me. What I didn't admit to myself was how often I felt like I was auditioning for a role I already held. Everything finally fell apart that night on the rooftop. The invitation had been to a college friend's birthday drinks at a rooftop lounge in downtown Denver. I knew Ryan would be there. Vanessa mentioned it casually, adjusting her earrings in the mirror. "It's no big deal," she said. "We're adults." I nodded. That was what I did. I didn't want to appear insecure, didn't want to seem threatened by a man who supposedly belonged to her past. The bar was crowded, the music low enough to allow conversation but loud enough to blur tension. When we arrived, Ryan was already there, animatedly recounting a story about a startup he'd invested in. The moment he spotted Vanessa, his grin widened, confident, familiar. She returned the smile in a way that made my stomach tighten. Not romantic, but nostalgic, and nostalgia has weight. All night, I watched them orbit each other in conversation. On the surface, harmless. Beneath, too comfortable. I stayed composed, joining in when prompted, laughing when expected. I reminded myself that marriage is built on trust. I hadn't realized yet that trust without respect eventually hollowed out from within. Then it happened, fast and almost casually. Someone joked about what might have been if old flames had stayed together. Ryan smirked and said, "Some people just can't handle ambition." The comment seemed light, but it carried a weight. Vanessa laughed, louder than necessary. Then she looked at me, then at him, and something in her expression shifted. "Please," she said, raising her glass. "Adrian is sweet, but he'll never be on your level." The group chuckled awkwardly. Heat rose in my chest, but I didn't react. She wasn't done. "He'll never be good enough for me the way you were." Sharp, public, undeniable. Silence followed, the kind that lingers just long enough to confirm damage. Ryan looked surprised. A few friends stared at their drinks. Vanessa seemed to realize too late that her joke had crossed a line, but pride kept her upright. She waited for me to protest, to argue, to defend myself. I didn't. I smiled, not because it didn't hurt, but because I understood something clearly for the first time. Leaning slightly closer so only she could hear, I whispered, "Maybe you're right." Her expression flickered, confusion, then irritation. She expected a fight, expected me to demand respect. Instead, I gently reached for her hand. She thought I was trying to smooth things over. Slowly, deliberately, I slid her wedding ring off her finger. The metal felt heavier than it should have. I placed it on the glass table between us. The soft clink was final. Conversations around us stopped. Ryan stepped back. Vanessa's face drained of color. "Adrian, don't be ridiculous," she said, forcing a laugh. I straightened, met her eyes once more, and said nothing else. No speech, no accusation. I turned and walked toward the exit. The elevator ride down felt interminable. My reflection in the mirrored wall looked calm, but beneath the ache was something unexpected, relief. Not for losing her, but for no longer competing. By the time I reached the street, my phone was vibrating non-stop with calls and messages. I ignored them all. I walked several blocks, breathing in the night air like it was oxygen after years underwater. 8 years of subtle comparisons played through my mind. The time she said Ryan was fearless, the time she suggested I take more risks like he did, the time she told me I was dependable in a safe way. I had absorbed every comment quietly, convinced that love demanded resilience. What I hadn't realized was that resilience without boundaries becomes permission. I got into my car and drove home. Our apartment already felt different, like a place I had shared but no longer emotionally belonged to. I packed a small bag, clothes, laptop, a few documents. Not much. I wasn't running, I was leaving. Hours later, settled into a hotel room across town, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from Chloe, one of Vanessa's closest friends. "You know what she said after you left?" I stared at it for a full minute before replying. "What?" I typed. 3 dots appeared, vanished, then reappeared. Finally, Chloe wrote, she told Ryan she didn't mean it, that she only said those things because she felt insecure standing next to him again. I read it twice. Insecure. The irony almost made me laugh. Chloe continued, she cried. Said I humiliated her by leaving. I typed slowly. Did she apologize? A pause. Not exactly. That was enough. I placed my phone face down on the nightstand and stared at the ceiling. It wasn't the insult that ended my marriage. It was the absence of remorse. The next morning, Vanessa called repeatedly. I let it ring. Eventually, she left a voicemail, her voice strained but controlled. You overreacted. It was a joke. You embarrassed me in front of everyone. Not, I hurt you. Not, I'm sorry. Just, you embarrassed me. That clarified everything. When someone prioritizes public image over private harm, the foundation is already cracked. I didn't call back. I contacted a lawyer by noon. The conversation was brief, clinical, efficient. I wasn't angry. Anger requires chaos. I felt focused. Years of trying to measure up evaporated overnight. For the first time, I wasn't asking if I was good enough. I was asking why I tolerated being told I wasn't. Vanessa showed up at the hotel that evening. I hadn't told her where I was staying. She must have guessed. Exhausted, makeup smudged, pride hanging by a thread, she said, "You're throwing everything away." Over one sentence. I shook my head. It wasn't just one sentence. She paced, listing vacations, shared milestones. "I chose you," she insisted. "I married you." I met her eyes calmly. "But you never stopped comparing me." Silence stretched between us. She didn't deny it. She said only, "Ryan challenged me." I nodded. "I loved you." The difference seemed to settle on her slowly, like a realization arriving too late. We finalized the separation quietly. No public scenes, no social media drama, just paperwork and distance. Mutual friends subtly picked sides. Some stopped calling. Others expressed sympathy privately. Ryan disappeared from the friend group shortly after. Vanessa reached out one last time before everything was signed. "You were good enough. I just didn't know how to value that." I read it without bitterness. Sometimes clarity only comes after loss, but clarity doesn't undo consequence. Months later, I ran into Chloe at a coffee shop. She said Vanessa had been different since that night, quieter, less certain. "When you put the ring down, it felt like something permanent broke," Chloe said. I stirred my coffee slowly. "It did," I replied. "Not dramatically, just factually. I don't hate Vanessa. I don't hate Ryan. I don't regret loving her. What I regret is how long I measured myself against someone else's memory. Love isn't a competition. And the moment it becomes one, someone always loses." That night, she thought she was asserting power. In reality, she revealed her priorities. When Chloe first texted me, "You know what she said after you left?" I thought the answer might change something. It didn't. What matters isn't what someone says after you walk away. It's what they were willing to say while you were still standing beside them. And I refuse to stand anywhere I'm told I'll never be enough.